Welcome to Eternal Elements Learning Podcast, brought to you by Atyasa Online. These podcasts are a part of the audio certificate programs on Atyasa Online. You're free to take these podcasts on your desired portal also, should you only wish to learn on the go. Thank you so much for engaging on these podcasts, and you can connect with the author on LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook. Hi, welcome back to Eternal Elements. This is Niket Karajagi, and I'm talking about strategy in Season 7. We talked about formulation of strategy, and we cannot move ahead from formulation of strategy to the elements of strategy until and unless we discuss what strategic management is all about. I did discuss certain strategic elements in my last podcast, but we will have to detail them out. But while we do get into detailing those strategic options and elements, it's also important to understand why strategic management is so important in corporate life. So what is strategic management? Is it only about top management? No. Is it about all people in the organization? Yes, because there has to be an alignment to the strategy within the organization. And this whole alignment cannot happen unless the strategy is systematically planned in terms of the alignment to the company's objectives. Therefore, strategic management is all about decisions and actions that result in the formulation of the strategy for sure, but these decisions and actions also ensure systematic implementation of the strategy in a controlled way, because ultimately the goals have to be achieved. These are plans designed to achieve company's objectives. Therefore, strategic management is all about decisions and actions that are taken by people within the organization to achieve the organization's objectives. It's also about formulation of the strategy, and it's also about implementation of the strategy. We said that the strategy is primarily a set of decisions and actions which are taken to accomplish the vision. Let's get a little more deeper into it. Since we talk about strategic management, it's also important to talk about strategy now. Strategy is a large-scale, future-oriented plan that is set by the management so that it can interact with the environment effectively to achieve its objectives. Therefore, strategy is large-scale for sure. It is future-oriented for sure. And it has to align with the external environment, because until you align with the external environment, you're not going to achieve your corporate objectives. So that's about strategic management. However, there are specific dimensions of strategic decisions. The actions and the choices that you make while you do formulate your strategy, there are certain specific dimensions associated with it. For one, it has to be through the involvement of the top management for sure. Strategy cannot be left to a handful of people within the organization. It has to flow from the top. And once you formulate your strategy, it definitely requires large amount of firm's resources for sure, because if you're not committing resources, then the strategy cannot be implemented. Strategy is always future-oriented. The strategy always requires a complete assessment of the firm's external environment. Strategy always has to be in a way that it generates long-term prosperity and profitability for the organization. Last but not the least, strategy has to be designed and formulated in such a way that we understand that it has multi-business consequences, because a strategy takes care of all the stakeholders, and therefore there are multiple people who are associated with it. Maybe you have a lot of business units, strategic business units under your corporate system, and your strategy also impacts them for sure. So what are the various levels of strategy? First, for sure, there's a corporate level strategy, which is all about where does the organization compete, and how are we going to diversify, and the whole mega plans that we talk about at corporate level. Once the corporate level strategy is set, then you get down to business level. That means from the corporate level strategy, the alignment of the business level strategy has to be done, which is obviously the decision of the senior people as well as the critical members in the business units, which are going to carry forward the corporate strategy. And while the business unit strategies are developed, then you have the functional strategies, because each business unit will comprise a function. And ultimately, all these functions have to align and ensure that the strategies are met. So if you look at it, if you look at the whole idea of strategic management, it's about formulating, it's about implementing, it's about ensuring that you take decisions in a way that they achieve the corporate objectives. It also has to be in alignment with the environment. There has to be a systematic way in which the corporate strategy as well as the BU strategy as well as the functional strategies are integrated so that we ultimately achieve the corporate objectives that we want to achieve. And strategy, let's be very clear, it's large scale. Strategy is future oriented. And it has to deal with the competitive environment in which we operate. So that's about strategic management. Once we understand the whole concept of strategic management, that's when we are ready to deep dive into the elements of the strategy. And when we talk about elements of the strategy, we're going to get into mission, vision, values. We're going to get into the corporate social responsibility. And then ultimately, we will get into the whole process of detailing out the strategy formulation. So thank you very much. This is Niket Karajagi from Eternal Elements, brought to you by TES Online, signing off. And I'm going to meet you in the next podcast where we'll discuss in detail all the elements of strategy. Thank you so much. See you again.